Room Productions. In this show, we talk about what the government has done to take your liberty and your property away and how we can be aware of it and prevent it from happening in the future. And I am so happy because we're doing something different right now. We are simulcasting with the one, the only, the great Alex Jones on Alex Jones Radio. So, Alex, as you welcome me to Alex Jones Radio, I welcome you to Freedom Watch.
Well, Judge, I'm going to let you run the show. I'm just here to be interviewed by you, and I appreciate you having me on.
There. We'll get it taken care of. Can you hear us, Alex?
Yes, we're doing something experimental here. Yes, Houston. Cape Canaveral hears you.
Okay, New York hears you loud and clear. Welcome to Freedom Watch, Alex. What are you talking about today?
Just how hundreds of mainstream news articles a week are saying there is a new world order, a global government. It will be run by the very banks that are collapsing society by design, and we will pay carbon taxes to them. Here is Time Magazine, headline, New World Order, and they say a new bank of the world will rule the United States. Here is the Financial Times of London, and now for a world government is the headline. They're openly announcing that the banks will rule the planet and will pay our carbon taxes to them for the phony global warming. And I just had a state rep on confirming the modern militia movement document, MIAC, saying Ron Paul supporters, libertarians, anybody with a Ron Paul bumper sticker are dangerous terrorists, that the North American Union doesn't exist, that anybody that talks about freedom or liberty issues is basically an evil terrorist. So we're exposing the New World Order here, Judge.
Well, I appreciate what you're exposing, and Ron Paul, whom you just mentioned, will be on Freedom Watch with me in about 20 minutes. I must tell you that there was a time when the types of things that you are warning against was not discussed openly and publicly. But I was scandalized when British Prime Minister Gordon Brown tipped his hand when he spoke to a joint session of Congress 2 weeks ago and said he was looking for, these are the words that caused me a couple of sleepless nights, Alex, and I bet you as well, and many of the folks watching and listening to us, a global New Deal. Now, what under the sun is a global New Deal unless it consists of the type of thing that you have just warned against, in which American taxpayers will be enriching banks, and banks will be deciding what we can pay, but it will be happening irrespective of the boundaries of the United States of America and other countries as well.
Absolutely. Here is yesterday's London Telegraph, IMF poised to print billions of dollars in global easing, and it says that the International Monetary Fund will create a new global super currency that will replace the dollar, and that Americans will pay tax money in to fund the world government. So this is all out in the open. That's why on our news, Geithner will never say what the plan is. What are you going to do? How are you going to fix it? But when the G20 meet, when they had the Bretton Woods meeting, the new one coming up in a few days, they admit they're setting up a world government run by private banks, what the Trilateral Commission said back in the 70s. Listen, I never discovered any of this. This was never my opinion. And people are saying, how were you right about all this? How'd you know this 14 years ago? I was reading IMF, World Bank, United Nations, RAND Corporation, Council on Foreign Relations documents where they said, and the SPP documents that Judicial Watch sued and got a few years ago, they were going to use a financial meltdown to bring in the North American Union, the new transatlantic agreement to merge that with the European Union. We are already deep into this merger, and it's all over the foreign press.
Let me raise your blood pressure a little bit more, Alex, because this also, what I'm now about to discuss with you, raised my blood pressure. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton visited her counterpart in Beijing about 8 or 9 days ago, and I don't know who else she saw, but we saw pictures of her with the Chinese foreign minister. About 4 days after that, at the G20 summit to which you just referred, a meeting of the finance ministers of the 20 largest countries in the world, which control collectively about 85% of the economy. For some reason, the Chinese premier was there. He was the only head of state there, other than Gordon Brown as the host. And the Chinese premier, before the G20 started, gave an interview to the one of the international press and said he's seriously worried about whether the United States will be able to meet its obligations.
Yes.
Calculated that the Chinese government itself, or government-supported enterprises supported by the Chinese government, has purchased in excess of $1 trillion in American security. So what do you think Hillary said to him? Do you think she toned down what he said and it was going to be worse before she got there? Or do you think she caused him to say that in the first place by whatever she whispered into his ear in Beijing?
Well, we know in separate meetings she's had with the Chinese leadership and several trips in Europe and in China, she said, please keep buying the dollar. Please keep buying our debt. Just long enough for us to set up this new global monetary system. The Russians are calling for a new global currency. The only thing the U.S. has left is its fiat dollar. The globalists have debased our nation. They've made us a debtor nation. They've destroyed our capacity to manufacture. And so the globalists are creating a global fire sale. They're destroying the world economy in their own documents so that then they'll be the only lender to the planet, and they'll create more fiat currency backed by U.S. and European taxpayers to then fund setting up their world government. So absolutely, the Chinese have been bad-mouthing the U.S., they've been bad-mouthing the country that they own over $1 trillion of our T-bills in. This is the birth of the New World Order, and so you've got all these different honchos from the private central banks, the private Federal Reserve, and others, all meeting, deciding on the final architecture of the world government. The very banks that have engineered the economic collapse are now posing as our saviors, bringing this in. But the good news is, I've never seen an awakening this big, and I'm seeing, people like Glenn Beck talk about the New World Order on Fox. I'm seeing you talk about it for years. Before him, we're seeing Lou Dobbs talk about it. We're seeing, mainline talk show host Limbaugh's even talking about global government now. Michael Savage is talking about how he thinks, Obama may stage crises to bring in martial law. So all the things that I was talking about in the wilderness 10 plus years ago is now hitting mainstream. And it is great. So it shows me the sleeping giant that is the United States and all of this liberty and freedom. We're rediscovering our roots, our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution. You've called for states to not secede, but, redeclare their 10th Amendment, 9th Amendment. You're a judge. You know the Constitution well, constitutional scholar. And so they're trying to get the feds back in line. The battle lines are being drawn here, and the American people are finding out that Washington's been seized by offshore banks.
Well, this will make your blood boil a little bit more as we keep ratcheting this up. And I thought that the summary you just gave was terrific. And just for those of us that are tuning in, Judge Napolitano simulcasting from Freedom Watch at FoxNews.com with Alex Jones, the great Alex Jones, on the Alex Jones radio show. We only have another minute or so. I suspect that Mrs. Clinton and the president will begin saying nice things about the Chinese human rights record.
No, they are now. They are, and that's why we've made the Obama deception.
Because if we dare to criticize, if we dare to use our First Amendment rights against one of the most oppressive giants in the world, they might just stop loaning us money, Alex. What would we do then?
Well, things would basically collapse, and that's what the globalists want, where we're all interconnected and controlled, and that's what my new film, The Obama Deception, at Infowars.com, covers, is how this guy is controlled by the very banks that did the bailout. Geithner helped write it. He's claiming he's going after all these CEOs' bonuses when they wrote a loophole in there where they're all exempt from the other rules for other banks and insurance companies. So there's one rule for the big global bankers, another rule for the Main Street bankers. This film doesn't just expose Barack Obama, the Obama deception. It just came out a few days ago, it also exposes who he works for, what his agenda for gun confiscation is, what his agenda is for forced national service, which they're now admitting, what his agenda is to bankrupt this country and bring in total police state control. But again, the good news is the people are waking up. And by the way, the Obama deception is free on YouTube and Google. Folks don't have to get the DVD at Infowars.com. The Obama deception, the most hard-hitting film, shattering the left-right paradigm, blowing the New World Order apart. Judge Napolitano, I want to thank you so much for having this simulcast, and I want to invite you on my show anytime, my friend.
Same from me to thee. Thanks, Alex Jones. It's absolutely been a pleasure.
Thank you.
First time with our experimentation with simulcasting two shows. And before we get to our guests here in Freedom Watch, who have joined us and are ready to weigh in, Thomas Jefferson wedded the natural law to American law in the Declaration of Independence when he wrote that our rights are inalienable and come to us from our Creator. Not only does federal law... All
right, thank you, Fox.
...full American experience...
You guys are getting radical having me on over there.
...natural law...
Let's go ahead and disconnect them. Thank you, guys. All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That was the simulcast with Judge Napolitano for about 12 minutes. I said I was going to